We are the Keyboard Samurai, a podcast focused on sharing insights to help those working in cybersecurity companies, be them technology or services. Each session, your host, Will Klusovsky, aka Will Clue, sits down with professionals in our industry to illuminate topics that will help your security biz, team, or self be better. Let's hack into it now. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another exciting, thrill-filled episode. So today, I get a special guest here. We get to be joined by Mr. Mike Williams himself. Mike, why don't you give us the 20 seconds of who you are and why we care?
Hello, I am Mike Williams. I have been in the IT space this is my 39th year. I actually started on a help desk in 1986, went to serve roles as a field service technician, LAN administrator, telephony administrator, did applications development for about 12 years, really enjoyed that. And then I delved into the wonderful world of leadership. And I've had various leadership roles. And now I'm honored to be the president of Appalachia Technologies for the last 3 of my 12 years here.
Nice. Yeah, we've got quite a few CEOs, presidents, leaders of organizations, so it'll be good to kind of get your insight on this.
Sure.
So today we're chatting culture, and specifically the culture of security, right? So this whole idea of, we all know that everybody talks about well, you need to have a security culture to really perpetuate security. So let's just start there. When I say, security culture, what does that even mean? Like in Mike's words, what does security culture mean?
It's a great question. And Will, honestly, I know we're talking security, but I'm going to lean on the traditional definition of culture because it shares many of the same components, right? And those being the beliefs or values, behaviors, the practices that surround and support a group of people that can hold us accountable. And I know culture doesn't happen on its own. It needs to be very genuine and it needs to be intentional. And all of those things start with leadership. So I would argue culture security is no different than the cultures we may have in our firms, companies, businesses, right? Leadership has to embrace it. And it's the very thing that kind of drives who we are and how we act day to day.
Right. Well, that's certainly poignant given today's, big conversations around mental health and burnout and fatigue, and then toxic leadership and toxic employees and all this stuff. So, I guess when I think about all that, and I'm thinking about okay, damn, if I want a security aware culture or just a good culture in general, we also want that in our clients, right? Because we're all service providers or technology people. We have clients. We want them to be happy and doing the right thing. So when I think about that, what do you? I'm like, how do you build that? How do you build that for your clients and then even internally for your organization, both
Right.
sides?
Well, and the beauty in both of those are people, whether you're a client or whether it's in your own house. And so I would argue from a security perspective, a security firm still has to do all the things a client would have to do, quite honestly. I mean, building the culture, we talked about it. It starts with leadership, of course, but it also starts with an understanding of what's important to you. What do you value? For a security firm, there needs to be a strong sense of passion and responsibility. I mean, I would argue almost a higher calling, if you will. I've always felt that as a security firm, there's an innate sense of purpose, almost nobility, in genuinely wanting to protect a client environment and fighting the good fight. I feel like a security aware culture is a little easier for a security firm. Honestly, it's not easy. It's great. It's not easy, but it's easier, and it's easier because security professionals live, eat, and sleep security. We consume it daily. And getting the work, in just getting to do the work that we do, whether it's the services, the conversations, the interactions we have with clients and our coworkers and teammates, right? It's also been my experience that security firms have passionate technologists. Security is what they do, so it's kind of in there, so to speak. And I also, recognize the very important role that we play in businesses, business decisions that a client makes. We have to take it very seriously. I kind of look at it as almost a first responder's mindset, quite honestly.
That's interesting. I like the the passionate part about technologists is because like we all have to take the same annual training that everybody else does, right? But we're all pretty
Right.
jaded and we know like we kind of we'll get arrogant about it for sure. But we definitely we're always very, very particular. And we always want like we may skip a lot of things that other people have to watch because we teach it, live it, and eat and breathe every day, but we also want to make sure we get every single question right. And then we do pass the thing. And I do know, I speaking for myself and some other people that I've talked to, like a lot of us have found errors in sort of those training things. And we're like, well, I know the answer you want is this one, but that's not technically right. And so we're always
Right,
giving feedback.
right,
It's like, hey,
right. And I'll tell you one other thing that I've also found, especially in cybersecurity, is the people that really care and are passionate about cybersecurity genuinely want to bestow their knowledge. They want to make other people better. It's not kind of this old guard of job security. I'm not going to tell you what I know because then that you may take my job. It feels very genuine and it's very community focused. Like having been in IT almost 40 years, I haven't seen another group of technology professionals share and care as much as those that do in cybersecurity, quite honestly.
yeah, that's, I hadn't thought of that because I've worked at both security peer plays and other larger sort of general IT telco firms, things like that. And I've definitely encountered the "this is mine, you can't have it."
Right,
I
right.
because if somebody else figures out how to do it, but never in the security group because honestly, there's too much work for all. Like every one of us would hire 3 more people if we could anyway.
Yeah, very, very true. Very, very true. But there's also something I think innate in maybe it's the thing I talked about earlier, nobility in what we do. It's really kind of a beautiful thing to see people genuinely want to share information and want to make each other better.
Yeah, that's hard. Yeah, even the introverts that are down
Sure,
in the basement doing the
absolutely.
work, they still want to share their
Absolutely.
knowledge. So how do you so in doing that, or I guess in creating these cultures, regardless we're talking security or just general, like how like what are the easy things to do that everybody can kind of take today with and go do some, and what are the hard things that maybe people have to work on a little bit more?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing to do is to start the cybersecurity or security conversation, right? You got to start somewhere. There's got to be some will there, no pun intended. And if you've already started it, extending that conversation to build, right? And look, for some of us, that's easier than others. Those of us with a compliance, mandate, or maybe having to deal with the ever evolving requirements for cyber insurance, it makes things easier in some regard because we have to do these things. We don't have a choice if we want to have the business that we have. I would argue another easy and cost-effective win is some semblance of a phishing and security training program for your employees. They're your most vulnerable endpoint. It's probably the biggest bang for your buck and probably the smallest spend you're going to have is to implement some semblance of a phishing and security training program. It gets the conversation going more, right? There's a competitive nature to it, depending on the scoring and those types of things. And it also gives you a good idea, a baseline of where are you with your users as far as just awareness of the things that they deal with, email, for example, day to day. So those are some of the easy things. No, look, the hard things, getting started, right? You've had the conversation. Cool. Now, how do you get started? So again, I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning of the podcast. Getting leadership on board to make that commitment is imperative. If you don't have leadership's buy-in, right, their hearts, souls believe in this thing, and there's going to be a budget tied to this, you're just never going to get there. I would also argue that establishing true ownership for the program is really important. You need somebody that's fronting this for your company or a team. And look, you then maybe need to determine, do we have the skill sets in house? Do we need to outsource this to a partner? Do we do both? We take these things, they take these things. So I think that's you're going to understand what that looks like, and it's different for each and every one of us. I would also argue probably the hardest thing to do is once you've wrapped your head around things is biting the bullet on some semblance of an assessment, right? Because it kind of all starts there. What are our strengths? What are our gaps? What are our priorities? What are the dependencies of those priorities? We can't do this until we do this. What's the timeline involved to do this? And of course, right, budgetary considerations, right? Those are hard conversations that take time, take planning, and take the right heads at the table to kind of put that type of traction in place, I'll say.
Yeah, and I know we're kind of going down a rabbit hole, but I'm okay with it because like it's something that everybody has to deal with, and the idea that everybody, like you said, if you're not highly regulated, then a lot of people just want security to kind of go away, and you're like, oh, we don't need a security aware culture.
100%.
But um, again, the people are that front line of like they are the weakest link, right? And so being able to address that and everybody says get management buy-in, leadership has to be on board. And I have found actually like doing some type of assessment, having some idea of instead of just going to leadership and saying, hey, we need to have we need a security awareness program, or we need a security aware culture because that's what we need. Instead, going back to like your risk register and saying, hey, look at these 15 things on the risk register that all are targeting our people, or maybe some potential flaws in our process that we don't know until we do some kind of assessment or pen test to figure out like, well, what happens if we do lose credentials to somebody? How bad is that thing? So a lot of times just kind of getting that getting that sort of, even if it's a simple policy that says, hey, we're going to do all of this stuff, and showing management and getting them to sign up, well, how are we making sure this is going to happen? That can be used to kind of foster those conversations, I think, a lot of times, as a good catalyst for it, or a good wake-up call in case you're not getting that kind of traction you need.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, in the perfect world, right, you don't need to convince a leadership that this is something that's needed. I mean, it's 2025 for God's sake, right? Like cybersecurity, there's no better sales tool for it, I would say, than current events. Just watch the news, right? Listen to the news. It's a daily occurrence now that really good, strong companies are getting breached because they're just not buttoning things up the way that they need to. So when you're faced with the prospects of potentially a PR nightmare or even going out of business, it feels like a really prudent conversation to have early on and build on that. And I can't imagine, like honestly, I can't imagine a leadership team that wouldn't value that. I know they're out there, but I mean, in this day and age, it's an imperative. I don't view it as an option anymore. It's an imperative.
Yeah. I mean, there's only so many things you can risk accept, right? So,
Right, 100%, 100%.
so thinking about that, like when we're like, let's like executing this, right? How do you kind of keep the employees up to date, engaged, thinking about it? I mean, look, we all know that you're going to put posters up on the wall and have meetings and stuff, but like, come on, like a little deeper than like, how
Yeah.
do you really make them care and become a culture of it, right? It's a little
Well,
easier if you're
that's
going to say we want to have a culture of like a family. Well, we can have barbecues and do stuff like that, but you can't have barbecues for cybersecurity. Well, I mean, I guess you could. Maybe that's something we need to do.
no, I'm with you, and I understand where you're going. And look, let's just start here. Posters aren't getting it done, like they never have. I have posters, I have coffee mugs, I have all kinds of collateral from prior companies that sounded really good as a tagline or a saying, but they were really not effective at all. So I would argue intentional programming is a must. We talked a little bit ago about some semblance of a phishing and security training program, right? That keeps your people thinking. There's continuous measurement. It's always there and it's a good thing. Things like training, events, conferences, internal lunch and learns are a wonderful tool. They're less formal, but they're a really good way to educate. And you may have people across the organization that are stronger and have certain skills, and that's normal. To have each one maybe pick a piece or a part and educate the rest is a really good way to do things. recurring tabletop exercises for things like incident response, business continuity plans, especially incident response. I was reading an article the other day that just talked about the millions of dollars companies can save themselves by actually doing true tabletop exercises several times a year for an incident response. So if and when that incident does happen, it's not the first time you're cranking out the playbook and trying to fumble through it, right? Some semblance of a security feed. Now, this might not be for every company, but showing the latest attacks and vulnerabilities. I mean, that could be interesting. One of the things I always thought was interesting was discussing other industry breaches to your team and to your company, why they happened, what could have been done to prevent them, those types of things, because then you kind of internalize it as, that same thing could happen here. I would also say, back to leadership again. You need to establish and report on KPI specific to security, right? You need to hold yourself accountable. Are we doing the things that we say we should be doing? So
Right.
that's just there's a lot of things you can do. That's just a handful.
Yeah.
But intentional programming, I think, is a huge, it's like any community, it's like any website, it's like anything that's socially aware. It's only as good as the content and energy surrounding it. And if there's no content energy, there's not going to be a program.
Yeah. No. So I like which like I personally love like having one-on-ones where you have the or because I as somebody who's done a lot of education to like non-security folks, most people don't like they understand the rules that they have to follow, but they don't understand well, like they don't actually understand how passwords get hacked. Like they don't know that it's no longer brute force because it's just like they don't understand that people go and like steal the files and take it down and what cracking is and all this other stuff, right? So I find a lot of times just having those conversations with them and explaining like talk about the cool stuff that we get to do, right? Like that's it. Like make it a movie or a TV show, make it a cool
Sure.
like here's the neat cool things that are going on and here's why you should care. And then I've also um for specific departments, right? If you get if I'm sitting and talking to everybody in finance about cybersecurity, that's a way better conversation. There's going to be a way better conversation than if I have the whole company in the room because some
100%.
people are going to care or not. But if I could be like, what's this? How do you do this? How do these processes work? Okay, well, have you thought about, like I can start to poke holes and kind of show them how the bad guys think, right? So I think that's super useful. And you said that, but you also mentioned something like 3 or 4 times, and I have to ask now because you said metrics and KPIs. And so, what exactly? How exactly do you KPI, OKR, all that stuff, cybersecurity culture?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, there's lots of things we can measure, right? So I would argue some of the probably the more basic ones are like patch compliance. Are your are your are your PCs, laptops, workstations, whatever you want to call these things, your servers, are they being patched on a regular basis, right? That's an easy one that you should be able to be able to report on. Talked about it yet again, phishing and training scores, right? Click rate, those types of things are really important metrics. How about the number of critical high vulnerabilities within an organization? The stages of incident response, time to detect, response, containment, remediation, right? These are metrics that you can come up with too. Now you need the tabletop exercises in order to be able to do those. And I know it's not real world, but it's as close to real world as you're going to get before real world ever happens. Number of privileged accounts in each environment. I mean, these are just a few things data that we can look at. And look, you run these out of the gate, you get a baseline, and you're going to see what needs to be worked on. And if you're doing the things that you need to do, you should see these numbers fall in line with where you want them to be for your organization.
Right. Yeah. And as I spin this to kind of our audience here, like you're if you're delivering security services, maybe you're doing just vulnerability management and you're not doing or maybe you're running the phishing tool, but you're not providing those metrics, right? Because when they come to us as a service provider, they don't know what they want or need. And so if all
Sure.
we do is run a scan and give them an output and they're like, oh, I guess I'm secure now. So I think there's a lot to be taken away from this in how to actually add client value and say, well, especially if you want to win a deal, right? Because if somebody's like, well, so and so is cheaper than you, it's like, okay, well, can I ask you a few questions, right? Are they testing your vulnerabilities before they give you the criticality ratings? Are they actually giving you data on the click rates of your phishing tool? Do they have remediation programs in place? Like all of these things that you can, are they able to do tabletop exercises, or do you have a provider who's just, it's just the phishing tool and that's it, right? Like we can bring in, so knowing your client's environment, you can see how you can easily add value to that whole security culture as a service provider too. So that just came.
I couldn't agree more. And the thing that's a little bit of mind blower for me, and I hope it gets there. I feel like it has to, is using one's cybersecurity posture, prowess, whatever you want to call it, as a competitive differentiator, right? Like, why wouldn't I want to hang my hat on the programs that we're doing uh, in our company to provide protection for my clients? Why wouldn't I want to have that out there and let people know the things that we care about and we're investing in to keep them safe? That feels like it's a distinct competitive differentiator to me, but I just don't hear many companies hanging their hat on it.
Yeah, no, and that's interesting because we all go out and get the ISO 27001 and the SOC 2 and all that so that we can get our clients. But I think it's something our clients, they have other clients also, and they could be like, well,
100%.
we're contracted with these people over here who are doing all these things that are really great, and we trust them with our security. We don't have to worry about like that's definitely, like you said, that's an advantage. That's more than just saying, yes, we're compliant with whatever framework because we have to be. Like you can kind of say we're partnered up with somebody really cool. That's kind of neat.
Right. Right. It wouldn't be a footnote on my website. It would be, I would try to figure out some way to actually promote that, and get it a little bit more front in the mix than just a little footnote.
Right, right. So as we wind down, I want to ask one last question here, kind of like where, like, what's happening now? What do you kind of see in the future where it comes to, this culture of security, this security aware type of organization? What kind of changes do you anticipate kind of seeing? Like, look into the crystal ball, Mike. What do you got?
Oh, I mean, crystal ball, I'm going to start really, really easy. I hope more companies just take it seriously, quite honestly. I mean, we have lots of conversations with lots of people, and it still really surprises me the number of people that are just started talking about a rigid password policy or MFA, right? Like these are pretty basic low hanging fruit things that we should be way past that conversation, and we're not. So for a lot of companies just starting, but for me, this thing only gets more and more complicated with AI, obviously, blockchain technologies, quantum computing. Like we have no idea what to
To
anticipate.
throw everything out.
Uh, right, right. We we need to have something to begin to build on versus starting from scratch. And I mentioned it before as far as trends. Uh, Using cyber as a competitive differentiator, I think is huge. But you need to be able to hang your hat on something
Mhm.
to be able to use it as a differentiator, right? So, I'm excited about the future. I'll put it to you this way: I'm excited, but I'm also a little concerned because of what I said at the very
Yeah.
beginning here. I just don't think people are taking this as serious as we really need to, and there are real lives at stake here, right? Whether it's certainly business entities, employees, clients. There's a
Mhm.
lot at stake here, and if we don't really start to think about this and value this conversation, it's not going to be pretty.
Right. Yeah, really is about sort of changing that conversation with your clients at the beginning to be like, especially if you're
100%.
dealing with folks who are like you said, just getting started, let's go ahead and inject, like, we get an opportunity because they need firewalls managed or any of their SIM managed, or we need a new shiny technology, new EDR, whatever it is. Build in that, hey, let's make the security better. Let's talk about the people also. So that's a great takeaway there. So Mike, if anybody wants to find you on the interwebs or get in touch with you, and I'll put all the links and stuff that you share down in the description too. But tell everybody where they can find you if they want to.
Listen, I'm not. I'm not a out there as much as maybe certainly Will as you are, but I'm absolutely on LinkedIn. You can look for Mike Williams at Appalachia Technologies. I would love for you, if you have any questions or you just want to talk about this thing and talk about maybe culture challenges you might be having in your own organization, you can email me at mike.williams@appalachiatech.com. But yeah, I mean, I'm available and willing to have the conversation with anybody that's interested.
Outstanding. Mike, thanks for your time, man. It's been awesome.
Thank you. Take care.
See ya.
Thanks for enjoying Keyboard Samurai Podcasts. If you'd like to engage, find Will on LinkedIn at /WillClue or visit at willclue.me. That's WILKLU.me for more info. Disconnecting now. Synac you later.